team, welcome to episode 150 of Transition Talk, where we talk about dental transitions and how to navigate the sometimes messy path to practice ownership. Now, insurance may not be the most exciting or glamorous part of practice ownership, but having the right coverage is critical to protecting you and your practice from costly setbacks. When owning a dental practice, your insurance needs usually fall into 3 buckets: personal protection, business protection, and property building protection. You probably all think it's just one bucket, but it's not. Seeing all the policies you need can feel very overwhelming and very pricey, but fortunately, there are some key resources that we have that can help you navigate it all. In fact, 3 resources are in our studio with me today. I'm excited to welcome Tara Cain, Insurance Account Manager at CWA Risk Solutions, Claudia Glaubitz, Director of Business Development at Risk Agency, and Joey Bertrand, CEO at Risk Agency. All welcome to Transition Talk. Thank you guys for being here today, sharing your perspective, and helping us navigate the insurance landscape. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's great.
Absolutely. I rarely get to have more than one guest, and so I feel very special today.
Yeah, pile of 3 insurance people in a room.
Yeah,
We have a good time.
I know. I mean, like,
Party.
Where's the party? Okay, so Tara, I want to start with you.
Okay.
I know we've had you on the podcast before, so some of you may already be aware of who Tara is, but for those of you who haven't, why don't you give our listeners a brief breakdown of who CWA Risk Solutions is?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are an affiliate of Cain. And so we've kind of been helping out with insurance kind of since the beginning of Cain and our affiliates. I think insurance just ties into everything. And so we've been advising on it for about 40 years. And about 2 years ago, they were like, we want to do it in-house. We want to have someone we can fully trust and make it an agency that we know is not going to try to sell any products that aren't needed. And so I was lucky enough to be brought on. And so we actually focus on the life and disability space, both for personal and some of the business side of that as well. Those are our primary ones. And I'm actually licensed in all lines of business. So I try to help clients as well if they have any advice issues that they may need. And so, yeah, we've been kind of operational almost 2 years.
Absolutely. And I think from an education perspective, I always joke that at NDP, we're considered a broker, and I'm involved in CWA Risk Solutions as well, and that's insurance. And I always say, like, I'm a part of 2 of the ickiest industries, but I'm really lucky to be a part of 2 that I think are very educationally focused. And, hey, you don't need every insurance policy and product under the sun, but you very much need the right ones. And so I know that's what we focus on. Claudia, welcome.
Thanks for having me here.
And you are part of Risk Agency.
Yes, that's correct.
Which serendipitously goes along with Risk Solutions very well. Why don't you give a brief overview of Risk Agency, who you guys are, and kind of what you guys do?
Sure. So Risk Agency is a boutique commercial insurance agency. What I like to say is a good comparison is Cain is really great at helping your clients build wealth. We are here to protect that, okay? So you guys are world-class when it comes to financial planning and helping your clients make smart business decisions. We come alongside that to ensure that any risks that may come up that could potentially derail that are quickly identified and then addressed. And that's not just with insurance policies. We don't just focus on that. We focus on ensuring that we also identify any exposures, close any gaps, and ensure that the clients feel secure, protected in the insurance coverages they have and their lives and in their businesses as they continue to grow and as their business becomes much more successful over time. So we're here to grow with you.
I love that. Okay, there are 3 big buckets of insurance. If I'm wrong in kind of the words I'm using, please correct me. And when we talk about personal protection, business protection, property building protection, Claudia, Joey, why don't you guys handle, that property building protection? Kind of what do you guys do there? Give me some examples that kind of help illustrate to our listeners kind of what we mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it spins into a lot of different things that are outside of the disability, life, and health world. We've had a lot of great examples over the last, 7 or 8 months. And a lot of times it starts with a small thing. It might start with, hey, they're buying a building and they have a list from their lender of what they need to be thinking about, right? Our job is to not just confine within that small space of the building or the business personal property or whatever, right? It's going to turn into things like employment practice liability, workers' comp, general liability, and the big ticket item, which is actually not the most expensive item, is the malpractice coverage, right? It's really cool. And we've had just recently, we had an example where 2 partners from 2 different practices were at the same, or different practices for 10 years. They're getting together, and it started off with a very small BPP and just trying to that. But we spent 45 minutes thinking from the misconception of professional liability versus malpractice, but bringing up basic things that in today's world is big as cyber.
Yeah.
cyber
Oh, yeah.
liability, and the intangibles. And Claudia hit the nail on the head, and it's wealth protection, it's asset protection, and the building they're going to buy is a big asset, and cyber can bankrupt you. So it's just really cool to transfer all these different small parts of the conversation into a much bigger picture. And that's why it's just such a natural fit, whether it's CWA or Cain Waters or whatever, just taking the business approach, because these folks, from what I understand, they don't spend a lot of time in school. It's very small on the business practice, which is why you guys exist, right? Like they need the hand holding and they need the approach and pick it up at different paces. So it's been fun to see.
Yeah, it's very, and I think too, that's why this kind of bifurcation between these three types of quote, quote, protection are so hard from what you just said, right? Like, yes, you want to protect your actual tangible assets, but when you say business protection, that can mean a lot of different things.
Right.
You mentioned cyber, we've got disability, which are business loan protection, like those can fall under personal, right? Like you can bifurcate them and kind of put them in whatever bucket you want. But as a business owner, we have a cash flow stream and assets that we want to protect. And there are a lot of ways to protect those and a lot of risks. So I love the gap protection. I love that. So when we say life and disability, Tara, and I know we've talked about this, but when we say life and disability, people automatically say like term life insurance, and people also think disability, but there's other types of coverage that you employ based on kind of the needs. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, again, every situation is going to be different. I think especially if someone's considering, or, if there's a practice transition or if you're purchasing into a practice, I know that there is a checklist that seems never ending. And so one of my favorite things about, I'd say, both CWA Risk Solutions and Risk Agency is we're not here to overwhelm. Again, education's our big one. And I think when this partnership was developed, one of the things that was really important to me was we're not recommending things that we don't find necessary. I think one of the first referrals we sent, I think it was a client that thought they needed a coverage, and they went and discussed their business model and came out of it. And they're like, actually, they don't need this, but this is what we ended up doing. And so I just love that Risk Agency is not going to be recommending things that people may not need as well. On life and disability, I think if you're a practice owner, there's at least some business protection that you will need. It depends on the situation. For the life insurance side, if you have a partner or if you have multiple doctors that are owners, then typically we will recommend a buy-sell policy. The example that is easiest to follow is if something happens and you have ownership in your practice, your spouse is probably legally not able to take on that share of that practice. And so what the buy-sell does is it allows the partners to take out, or they have the money to now buy out that remaining portion of the practice. So it's kind of like a double benefit. It goes to the family in a way, but it's also protecting your business partners. So that's mainly like what we will see in especially a transition. But the lenders will also sometimes require different insurances. And then I guess on a base level as well, we always say, you want as much life insurance at the very least to cover any outstanding debts, just so if something does happen, then you're at least covering your family and protecting your family there. So those are probably our most common insurances on the life side.
Yeah, and I would say if you're listening, there's a chance you're a young want-to-be owner and you're a buyer. I know you don't have a lot of money. I know funds are slim, but as someone who is now much older than you, I would tell you that if I could go back in time in my 20-something year, I would buy a lot more life insurance. I joked about this yesterday at lunch. I bought enough and I was like, if I ever need this much money, I will be the richest I've ever been. And now I'm like, man, I wish I would have tripled it. Not that I make that much more money, but I'm just like, now I'm older. It's harder to get insurance and we have more assets. And so just kind of being a little bit more forward thinking about what you're doing. There are ways that we can make it affordable. There are ways we can have conversions. There are things we can do so that you can kind of try to get as much as you can for where you are at your life and kind of go forward. Claudia, I want to ask you, when we talk about malpractice, I guess, or Joey, I guess, whoever, you mentioned malpractice. That's a lot of the things that our listeners are going to need. There are a lot of little intricacies of malpractice policies that kind of can trip people up. So what are some things about that, maybe that policy in particular, that we want to kind of focus on and think about if they're out there shopping? Yeah,
and lots of angles, right?
Yep.
I mean, the most common thing that we've seen over the last year, especially from a lot of folks y'all are sending our way, is the dentist at a practice, right? Practice already has a policy. Do they need to have their own? creating layers and buffers, right? It's kind of like, if you get a health or life insurance policy through your business, you still need one outside of your business, right? Is it going to follow you? There's a lot of the same concepts, and it's diving into the unique needs of each situation. I know it sounds very generic, like, oh, we're going to, we have to think about it, because otherwise, first off, we have our own malpractice insurance, right? So we have to think about, my guys have to do the right thing and protect their folks. So we're going to dive into it and then help them game plan for what it's going to look like when they do want to own their own practice, right? Things like retroactive coverages in our world is a big thing. Are they covered from 5 years ago when they started their practice and they're starting the new one? Are they going to have something comes up? That's a reality in the medical world, right? And we think about it in our space too, from when a liability claim was happened, did we have coverage at that moment, right? That wasn't malpractice related. A slip and fall, sometimes people in today's society, it's litigious, right?
Yep.
Things come out of nowhere. And so it's just taking it from different angles and knowing that a lot of these folks coming out of school, it's $1,000, right? To get a malpractice policy in your name to protect yourself. Because the really big picture is, you really don't know what's on that practice's policy. What if they have $1 million in coverage and they had something unforeseen happen and they got zapped coverage and no one really knows about it, right? So it's a small investment for big picture things. So.
And if you'll get tail coverage at the end when you do leave,
Yeah.
and then the date of when you should get the coverage is incredibly important. When we went and spoke at one of the schools, some of the students were asking me, is like, when should I look at getting this coverage?
Right. And what will really kind of throw a lot of people off is when these malpractice policies or your general liability policy, any sorts of liability, right? There's usually a throw-in of something, right? Cyber coverage. General liability on your malpractice policy is very common, but it's not what you think it is, right? It's going to see general liability. So it's kind of cutting through the crap, I would say. And then what's the source? What's going to cover you? And it's really understanding that. And that's the most common thing. We're saying, oh, I got general liability. It's on my malpractice. Well, it's not going to cover you when you lease the building.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And this is also true from life and like riders that you can get on life insurance that are very affordable, but that can give you big benefits. Talk about that, like some things that people don't notice or kind of don't know that they can add on or maybe misunderstand when they have a life or disability policy.
Yeah, on the life insurance side, I would say the biggest ones that we're recommending, it's most likely going to be term insurance. I love whole life and permanent insurance policies, but I have found, especially when I'm helping with a practice transition, that we're already looking at pennies and where everything's going to go. So the term life is going to be the most affordable option, but adding a conversion rider is really helpful. One, if you become uninsurable, which does happen because of something that, happens along your life, then you still can convert that policy over to the amount of insurance that you have. So you can offer, eventually having permanent protection. So I think that one's the biggest one on the life insurance side. Disability, there are several riders. I can say kind of what our non-negotiables are at CRS. The main one is an own occupation policy. And so that just means, I think arthritis is a really common claim and it's an easy example. If you develop it, you're likely not going to be able to work again. It's not something that goes away. And so what this rider allows you to do is if you decide, I want to go be a Pilates instructor or I want to stay at my practice and just advise and maybe still talk with clients, but I'm not using my hands, or I want to go run the front office, I might never want to work again. All of those things are acceptable with this policy. They don't look at if you decide to work again or if you decide to work in your occupation. If you decide not to, you are receiving benefits for that full, whatever your benefit period is. So, and we also write policies typically with us till age 65 or 67. And even if you technically retired at age 60, those benefits are still going to continue to be paid until 65 or 67, depending on the policy you pick. So I think those are the main ones as well. And then I'm really big on, especially if you're younger and if you're purchasing into a practice, like the disability and life insurance is never going to be cheaper today than it is in the future. So the future increase options on the disability side, because I would probably say most people when they're purchasing into a practice, they are doing it for several reasons, but one of them is they want to see an income increase, which is what we see. And so you might qualify for only $10,000 of disability today, but 2 years from now, you can qualify for an additional 20. Even if you developed really scary disease or arthritis or anything like that, you can increase your coverages without medical underwriting. So that's one of my favorite ones. Like if I had to pick one of my favorite riders, like not like we have to write it on there, but my favorite, it would probably be the future increase options.
Yeah. And I think, as someone who thought that I was invincible, turns out things happen in life. It's weird.
Sadly.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
And so, the future flexibility is really helpful. Joey, Claudia, a lot of our clients, a lot of our buyers, they're buying their first practice or they own and they're finally getting the opportunity to buy a building. I know there's a lot of options. I know that it's going to vary, right? But if you had to be put on the spot and say, if I'm buying a practice and a building, what are your non-negotiables right now? Based on, you can give me some assumptions, but where we are.
Yeah, I mean, we're not an attorney because there's certain things we can say
Yes.
we wouldn't say, but please buy the building in its own entity name.
Yes.
Please. The cool part
second
is,
that.
as long as you own both the practice and that, we can put it on the same policy. But we're also going to explain separate liability limits could benefit. Again, litigious society could sue both your entities.
Yep.
That's probably the one most common we're seeing for people that come in and already own a building. We had one example. I think they acquired 6 or 7 practices over 15 years. LLCs all over the place, right? They had the idea, but they mixed and matched and all that. And unbeknownst to them, I think they just kind of trusted their agent to do it. Dude, that's a good start in knowing that we can get creative. It means, and when you have an owner-occupied property, you are going to get a lower rate on property insurance almost 100% of the time. Because on paper, to an insurance company, they know the landlord's on there or the owner and the landlord there, it's maintained, just historically less losses. Other than that is the cycle of the loan 90 to 120 days out. Get started early. You guys are really good about getting ahead of the game and getting in front of them. But with that, what we see is people kind of start early and then they tail off until the last week or two. And it's kind of a fire drill for everybody. And it's a little chaos and then there's not a lot of absorption. So, and that's the neat part is we do adapt really well to the client's time and understanding that, as mentioned earlier, we had 20 minutes, but let's carve that out at a time that works for you. And my guys will work for 8 o'clock in the morning and they'll work late to work with their schedules too. So just knowing to take 30 minutes, that's about all you need. You know, again, we don't need you to be an insurance expert. And I wanted to say this earlier. It's first, I'm really proud of you. Second off, I think it's really important to work with the insurance agents or the lender or whoever that stays in their lane. Right?
Yep.
I did Keyman policies in the day, right? A Keyman life insurance policy. I did at first I got excited because they're big ticket items, right? You're get 100% commission, blah, blah, blah. But we can't be good at everything, guys. That's why you guys are working with us. That's why we're going to work with a business planner or whatever. Just stay in your lane, work with the people who that's what their expertise is, right? And if you're working with historically, you've had State Farm or a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with any of this, but if you've had them since you were a kid and you're driving, talk to them, go get a quote, all that stuff, but take the opportunity to talk to an independent insurance agent.
Yep.
That's the really big ticket item. I was my long-winded way of getting to the part, talk to an independent agent.
I love that because we're very big here about go get a dental specific expert that's an attorney, do a dental specific lender, talk to someone who understands what your business is and is an expert in their lane. Someone who tries to kind of be an expert in everything should be a big yellow flag.
Be average at everything.
Yeah.
You're never going to be great at everything.
Yeah.
It's just, unfortunately, we don't have enough arms. I don't care how many people you hire. You're not going to be great at everything.
You talked a little bit about this when doctors should secure coverage, how early is too early, how late is too late. I'll kind of go around the table here. You guys can all kind of put your input, but let's start with you, Tara.
Yeah, I like to say try to give at least 4 weeks on both life and disability. It can depend on the client, but you just never know as well. There's going to be underwriting involved, and just depending on where you have had treatment, we've seen sometimes medical records can take weeks, and you might be doing everything immediately, but they want those records. And so they're not going to underwrite as quickly. I have people that get approved within a day, and I have people where we have been working on this for 5 weeks. So if it's something that you are going to need prior to closing, then at least give 4 weeks. Again, there's so
She's
much.
being nice. I say 6 to 8. So I'm just going to say, if you're listening to this and you work with us, now I'm going to say something different.
Yes.
Okay, keep going.
Yes. And usually, again, when there's a transition, especially, that's when we will get everything out in front. That way it's you know what you're getting into. And I'm happy to talk through all of it at any point. But we will usually say, okay, well, when can we create that follow-up? And when can we do this where it's a little less overwhelming? Because people will leave and they're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start, which would be me. That's so fair. And I know insurance, again, it's something that a lot of our clients will say until they need it. It's it's one of my least favorite conversations is to have an insurance discussion. And I think there's reasons for that, right? There's been a lot of distrust in this industry. But like I said, I think both of our companies, again, we are just going to lay out all of the options and what we'd recommend. There's no constant follow-ups for 15 years. It's not one of those, which I think has become pretty normal. And I'll try to remind people myself, but I'm maybe we schedule something at that 5-week mark where now we can go through it. You actually have more insight on your loan. You've already gotten pre-approved, so we can go through what's needed for your loan. I like to work with lenders directly just so I can make sure there's nothing lost in translation. I can take that off their plate and just keep the client kind of looped in. I'm not sure if y'all's process is different, but
absolutely.
say, like-
Yeah, no, I mean, now, first off, now it's a better time than ever. Like, you just starting it, right? And I think it's just the initial contact and planning it out. And absolutely, like, get the right people connected for you. Right? Like we do kind of cut through like, hey, if you get just lender, we can get those requirements, you know what they are. And then I was mentioning earlier, it's like, that's their list to protect the bank to make them feel nice and fuzzy. And our job is to cut through what they need, right? And then what they suggest and all that kind of stuff. And so, I think now it's never time than ever, and just plan out accordingly. And then for our world, we really, I mean, I wasn't joking, like 30 minutes to an hour spread out over a few weeks, it's really not, that's all we're looking for. So just getting ahead of the game,
In a perfect world, to be like 60 to 90 days out is when you would want.
Yeah. And the cool part is this thing is we're patient, right? Like we're not going to push you. Like you already have your own incentive, like you should know it. We don't have to have another fifth person chirping at you to get this thing done. So we just kind of fit in where we can,
And I would assume some of your policies might be quicker than
Yeah.
others, depending
Yeah.
on like actual time it would take if everyone's kind of working in the same direction.
Right. And we have leverage with pricing when we have more heads up of what we can do. So, I mean, you might do this on the life and health insurances. We have to provide a narrative to an underwriter if it has to go through a tricky situation, like especially if it's coastal, for example. If you got people in Florida, Louisiana, anywhere on the Texas coast, like there's different negotiations we have to do. We're about to hit, well, it's June. It's June already. Jeez.
No,
We're hitting hurricane
season's
season.
coming.
So like it's a different level of negotiation we have to do to think about those twists. And also knowing that we're ahead of knowing that the property market has softened. Rates are 20 to 30% lower than they were 2 to 3 years ago. Right?
I did not know that.
Yep. And so you mentioned about that, about things are going up. Like it's kind of crazy. I've been in 24 years now in insurance, never really seen insurance go down as much as it has. But just knowing that we can pivot and know that and maybe the carrier that was hot 2 years ago is not really where we're at.
So on that point, everyone has certain types of insurance and you've had the same policy forever. You've had the same State Farm guy forever. How does it work, right? If someone said, hey, I want you to take a look at what I have. Like I've never really done this. I got these way back when. Do you guys look at existing policies? Do you just kind of start fresh? Like how do you guys look at
I
that?
like the idea of starting fresh while looking at it. Like I don't just get stuck. Like I have to train my guys all the time. They'll get obsessed. So the new guys will get obsessed. Well, this is what they got. I got $145,700 in coverage. I'm like, well, first off, we're gonna have to say 150. Yeah. I don't know. They probably started at 120. They worked their way up. But like, does that even matter to them? Do they know that that business personal property covers the finish out of their space and the contents inside? I'm more like asking questions like, what do you know? And it's not to make you feel stupid. It's to think through like, these are the nuances that you should be thinking about. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're going to look at it. We're not going to like put down a huge like spreadsheet and comparison and all that if they want to. Cool thing with AI now, you probably can with a couple talks to it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we're going to think through it. And then at the end of the day, we might say you are in a great spot. We had one recently and we actually didn't even get out of the gates of getting to propose to him. And he said, actually, I really like my guy. And so y'all got him over and I think y'all were just trying to help out. And we just said, you know what? That was a starting point for us too. It was like, all right, non-negotiable. We're not going to just please give us a shot. Like you're cool with it. You feel good with the guy. Go for it, man.
Yeah, and I do think insurance is a relationship piece, which we completely understand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and like lots of things are like that in this industry, right? You've had the same supply rep guy forever and they're going to do X, Y, or Z. And it's okay, but a good relationship should also be able to get you like the best coverage and the most education.
Right.
And you can still be friends with someone and go another direction because that relationship is not going to help you when you get hit by a hurricane or have a cyber attack that you're not covered for. So again, it's a business. We want to operate it like a business. And so highly encourage you to be smart about who you're using and also be educated. And if you don't feel educated and you don't know what's in your policies, that can be a problem. I have a very closer insight here with you, Tara. We have clients all the time who think they have one type of policy and turns out they don't. So what's your experience with the same question that, I asked these guys?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things when you took over Risk Solutions, it was, again, education's our biggest one. And that's one of the things that we go to dental schools now because we're just like, we see that mainly with our clients where they're like, I was literally told this was an ONOC policy. And I'm like, they don't even offer it at this company, but they were verbally told. And that's the thing about insurance. I mean, in our past life, we knew if it wasn't in writing, a lot of the times it's word of mouth versus not. And so I'm so comfortable with writing everything that this policy includes and what it doesn't include. And on the disability side, it's harder to replace policies. It's just so much more expensive. Even 29 versus 30, we're talking about a $500 a year difference in premium, and it just adds up. And so you might now come to Cain Waters and you have a planner that is going to say, we do not want this policy because this is what will happen if something happens to you. And then they want to come to me and it's almost too late. not to discourage. Of course, sometimes we will replace, but a lot of the times we will just take out an additional policy and try to get that policy right. And then in the event of a claim, at least there's partial coverage coming from this. But yeah, I think having someone, and I'm kind of curious as well for you guys, but one of the planners at Cain Waters, he was talking about one of the worst things happened. He had just helped one of his clients sell his practice. Yeah, something happened. And what really frustrated the planner was for the life insurance claim. The agent texted back, like, this is the number. Like, couldn't even be a part of
Come on.
Couldn't be
that.
bothered to take the call.
And disability claims are harder. It's not just, okay,
Yes.
well, here's the death
A lot of
certificate.
moving pieces, right? Yeah.
Disability is, we got to talk about, are you losing partial of your income? Okay, well, how do we prove that? How do we say you're missing 60% or whatever the case may be? Or is this a covered claim and how are we going to get that? You don't want an agent that is just going to text you a number. And I think Joey and I we've worked together for 10 years now?
Almost, yeah.
So yeah, we worked together in our past life and now our current. And I think one of the things you always did too was, yes, there's going to be people that handle a claim. That's the same in both situations. But how do you think that you guys differ in that scenario as well from others?
Yeah, I mean, we call it loss controls, right? Yeah. Like, let's think about your loss controls, and it goes back to the discovery, right? And I'm so big in that first 20 minutes of talking to someone, and it goes back to like not staring at something. It's like when you were saying a minute ago, I was like, trust but verify, just like that's a big thing to me. If people want to check us, that's great. It makes me feel better at the end. They came back and said, you're a good guy. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we are not claims adjusters, right? Yeah. We're not cutting the check. We can't say certain things, go back to the attorney thing, but we're going to speak for the facts. We're going to interpret the language the best we can. We're just basically going to try to set them up for success, and understanding that they should get disability, they should get life, but they got to get workers' comp, right?
Yes.
I mean, knowing that supplements into the loss of income and all those kind of things is putting ahead of that. But yeah, when it comes into something critical, like recently I had a dentist slice his hand, right? And really bad. And she was out for a little bit. She's like, what do I do? And I'm like, let's get you a claim filed first off. Let's do that. Like, first, just get the notice out there. And it's amazing how many insurance companies don't actually care if you file a claim that doesn't get paid out.
Yes.
You could file multiple of those, and they're like, thanks for letting us know. And especially if it's liability related. If there's a potential lawsuit coming on, whether it's malpractice or general liability, or even your employee who's not sure if this guy's going to come take you for a ride from employment practice liability, you put that claim in. You put it in there, and no one's going to get mad at you that you put them on notice. So just knowing that it's okay to use your insurance,
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, And I'm a guy that doesn't really use my health insurance. The teledoc's awesome, but I don't really want to. But if I have to use, I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
I like to layer on and just say that we are an agency that's really big on communication.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in, yes, text messaging is so convenient for everyone, but I am a huge advocate of picking up the phone and calling someone, and especially in a very difficult and challenging situation.
She's like, just call them. Like, you're right. I got busy.
We missed the mark here. We need to pick up the phone and call someone and have these discussions with them. I think that's how you understand true sentiment. You feel the human side of things, and that's what I'm big on as well too. And then another thing, just kind of going back to, yes, we all have our relationships with our agents, but it's also another reminder as to the situations you talked about as to why you should go with an agency that specializes in those specific industries or fields. So for you, it's going to be the life and then the disability versus going to an agency that does it all. Same thing for us in the commercial. We'll come across other agents that do personal lines, commercial, life, and everything else. And then that's where a lot of the mistakes, a lot of things will slip through the cracks there versus for us where we eat, sleep, and breathe commercial. This is our niche. We specialize in this.
Yeah.
It's just pretty wild. And you're going to have annual reviews, right? We talked about cyber earlier. It just looks a lot different than 5 years ago. Social engineering is one of the biggest claims, right? Do y'all know what that is?
No.
Educate
Bamboozled into paying invoices that shouldn't be paid.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Where it starts with a phishing email.
Okay.
Starts with a phishing email, it leads into that. Pretty much the most common thing, right?
I learned of this the other day as well too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's changed. It's the limits are not there. Usually be 50,000. Now you need like a few 100,000 at the low end for something crazy.
Especially if we're talking, a dental practice with patient information and HIPAA requirements and all of that, right? You don't want to be caught in that situation.
It's the HIPAA thing. And also knowing that all the servers whatever this is going to go through on the internet, it's ran by 3 or 5 companies, right? Yeah. You got AWS and all that. If they have it down, they have their own insurance, but it's not going to trickle down to you. They got coverage worth billions of dollars, right? But you need the protection. You need the first legal defense dollar covered.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And then I think just wanted to also briefly, we talked about personal disability, which is like, yes, for sure. If you don't have it, you have to. But circling back to what Joey said, I mean, and I love the lenders that we work with. There's nothing against the lenders in this situation. But when they are advising what your closing requirements are, it is to benefit the bank. It is for the bank's protection. So on the life insurance side, if something happens to you, then their loan is still paid off in full. On the disability side, if you were to become disabled, your loan doesn't go away. And most of these loans, I mean, I've seen them get up to $30,000 a month. Typically, it's around $15,000. And so a lot of the banks will say, well, we want the loan covered as well if you stop working, which is known as a business loan protection policy. And it's usually tied to overhead. And so a lot of times it'll be, well, we want to skip on the overhead, get as minimal coverage there, and then just have the loan protected. But, you know, we're reviewing their P&L and they have 15 people working for them and it's a really large office. Their overhead expenses can be really expensive. You don't want your personal disability checks to go to that. The personal disability is we want your lifestyle to remain. Like you love to golf or you love, like me, you want to go to the beach, then you can use those checks for that. You want the overhead protection for, okay, well, now we're getting, you know, whatever limit you set up, you can get up to $50,000 a month while you're still that owner and you can pay that and that's going to go for anything for your practice. So that's a huge one as well that I think is missed a lot of the time, but especially if you're a practice owner, I mean, I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah, and one last thing on that too that would piggyback really well is loss of business income on the property side. Is it kind of it's the same concept, right? Like you have a thing called actual loss sustained, which they're usually going to do a 3-month look back and then a year if you've been around for this. So they're going to try to get an idea what it is. But you're going to actually go into some policies nowadays that are going to cap that limit. You know, I don't want to name one of our carriers, but like I've been noticing, like we will tell them they make $1.5 million a year, but they're going to cap it at $200K. I mean, that's 3 months. That's nothing, right? And it goes back to what you're saying is like, where are you going to? I mean, maybe they got the money, but it goes back to asset protection, wealth management protection, all these fun
and
things.
I think we see this all the time in younger buyers who are trying to just limit the outflows of these insurance policies. Is like we'll see someone who will be like, "Well, I have life insurance. Let me just assign it over to the bank." And I'm like, "Well, what's going to happen to you, right? Like, what's going to happen to your family?"
Right.
Yeah.
Or we'll see property coverage where it's like, "Oh, they only need X," and I'm like, "So you think you can rebuild that building and all the things in it for that amount of money?" Like, so
by the way, good rule of thumb: $200 a square foot. Okay?
$200 a square foot
for the low end for a dental practice. Okay, I mean my office is pretty average. It costs just for a suite was like, and this is a beautiful office. This is probably $275, $300 a square foot for a place like this.
Yeah. So
right?
don't undercut yourself because you will be very sad and very broke or very in a cash flow negative situation.
All the things.
All the things. When
Your
those
financial
things
planners
happen.
will be very upset with you as well.
Okay, this has been so much fun. You guys are busy people. We have like a hard stop,
So
and
much
I want
fun.
you guys to be able to get on with your very important client work. Thank you guys so much for being in studio with us. Your expertise to your clients, to our clients is so incredibly valuable. Whether you own now or you're going to own later, if you have the ability or chance to talk to one of these 3 individuals, I promise you, you're going to be better for it. If you have a need, if you need your policies reviewed, if you feel like you aren't totally satisfied or educated about what policies you have, if you don't know where your policies are or who they're with or how much they're for, let's chat. So we'll put some contact information into the show notes here so you can reach out to us and we'll connect you with the right person based on kind of what you're needing. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
I love it. So much fun. That's all we have. Thanks for joining us on episode 150 of Transition Talk. Make sure to share the transition love with those who may not know of us yet. And of course, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time.